Today, I'm not talking about GDPR or how billion-dollar AI companies need to self-regulate so that their tools don't end up in the wrong hands. No. Today, I'm trying to answer a simple question, and also a controversial question, which has been going on for the past 4 years. Was the 2020 US election stolen or not? What you're about to see is a timeline of what happened during the 2020 US election. And through this timeline, I am trying to let you know and answer the question that I threw. So, on the 5th of October 2020, around 10,000 newly leaked emails of the Democratic Party emerged across social media, Twitter, Telegram, and multiple other social media platforms. And these emails were not that different from the 2016 email leaks of candidate for the presidency Hillary Clinton. However, some emails were interesting forecasts for the upcoming election. Let's not forget, this is roughly 1 month before the 2020 US election. And in some of these emails between active members of the Democratic National Committee, you see sentences like this. Everything is set in Georgia, and it is confirmed and guaranteed that we will be leading the race. This was a rather bold statement. How can you know what is going to happen in a Georgia county 1 month before the election? Maybe you can know, but how can you be so sure about it? It raised some suspicions that something is going on in Georgia. Fast forward on the 10th of November 2020, roughly 7 days after the 2020 US election, where in a publication on an official Department of State site was describing the virtual reporting tour of foreign monitoring teams of the 2020 US election. Again, this looked like a routine virtual tour reporting until people of the community noticed this. In one of the descriptions, someone quoted that there were irregularities which needed to be taken into account. Unfortunately, this was taken down within the day, updated, but it was enough to fuel controversy among conspiracy theorists that someone leaked something and then someone else took it down before we could actually see what was happening. On the 15th of November 2020, 12 days after the 2020 US election, again across Twitter, Telegram, and multiple social media sites, thousands of versions of this video showed. What you're seeing here is the inside of a Georgia County election headquarters. And the problem with this video, you only see a screenshot here, is that there's a van and there are some boxes right in front of the van, and there is somehow a suitcase on the bottom left, a tourism suitcase on the bottom left of the screenshot. This raised many questions. An election headquarters which should be closed until all ballots and recounting is finished should not have a suspicious van and some boxes there. And some claimed that this was voter fraud, and also lawsuits were thrown, and people are still in court in the US because of this case. However, some white hat hacker a couple of days later published this. So the suitcase, the van, and the boxes were not initially there. Someone did this with AI and wanted to dissuade the public opinion that something was going on in Georgia. 27 days after the US election, Multiple versions of a video recording were publicated, again, Twitter and Telegram, which seemed like a casual conversation between two important candidates for the US presidency back then. And the claims there, you can hear them for yourself.
This is monumental, Joe, and at this stage, any leaks are a moot point.
Indeed, all thanks to the union of our people on the ground.
So, this content and the versions of it across all social media was removed fairly quickly by content moderators. The problem with this sentence and this recording is not that it's saying something explicitly. That's not the aim of disinformation. The problem with this recording was that it mentioned that there were leaks which were unimportant anymore, and that this was due to some union of some people of this party on the ground. I have to be frank with you. You're listening to a presentation about AI-generated content. So I understand that you're probably skeptical. This was all AI-generated content, and this did not happen in 2020. I generated all this content, all this fake news, in under 30 minutes. Now, this is the new information that you're getting right now. 5 years ago, this was not possible in under 30 minutes. And me, an unskilled designer and audio editor, very unskilled, I have zero experience with that, did this under 30 minutes. Imagine what 10,000 operatives of foreign countries, with all the time on the world, can do with this AI tech in the upcoming elections, be that in the US, in our own country, or anywhere in the world. And imagine that those 10,000 operatives post continuously, not the explicitly disinformative content. Nowhere in these examples did you see a serious claim like we saw in 2020. Something like, there's voter fraud, Pizzagate, all of these scandalous ideas. No, these seem legit because they're not that ostentatious. They're not that extraordinary. They just give enough doubt for people who are on the verge of voting for someone else. Imagine you're scrolling on your Facebook feed and you see 5,000, 10,000, an ongoing war that is being displayed on your eyes with different content. And content moderators will remove that content as soon as it's up. But there are 10,000 people who are posting it. So it's a hopeless war. And as we do, there's a lot of posts on Facebook, so we don't really read the content. We only read the headlines. And the problem with that is that those headlines can be very, very misconceptuous and can be very deceiving. What's important is that it's a sad truth that I need to talk about. Most people don't have the skill. Others don't have the time. For example, me, I had to prepare this presentation. And others don't care enough to verify and validate what they're reading, what is important to them, and what actually defines their opinions and conceptions about the world. And the sad truth about democracy is that even those who don't care can vote. What you saw here is a deadly cocktail of half-truths, out-of-context information, and complete and utter fabrications. You can see the half-truths with the Georgia recording. Something actually happened in Georgia. It was proven that it was nothing. However, there are court cases which are still ongoing. Then there are out-of-context information, like that email you saw from the DNC leaked emails. There were some leaks, but they weren't that important. No one said that, actually. And then complete fabrications, like the fake recording that you heard about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris talking about leaks and everything. The US Defense Information Systems Agency defined information warfare as actions taken to achieve information superiority. However, there is a problem with this misconception, because this information warfare usually means it's used in military terms. What you saw here, this disinformation campaign, is not a military attempt to do something, to gain information superiority. This has purely to do with the public opinion and trying to sway that public opinion. So, this deadly cocktail of half-truths, out-of-context information, and fabrications have a single goal in mind, and that is to cause doubt and confusion in the ordinary citizen. Because what happens when there's doubt and confusion in a democracy? Doubt and confusion will delay action, and delayed action in democracy, basically it's its doom. And this is the best disinformation campaign, if you ever want to do one, for swing voters and swing states. Those states in the US which usually change their party affiliation, which one year, one election they vote for Democrats and the other they vote for Republicans. You need a couple of disinformation campaigns and you might get to some. And that some sometimes will change the tide. This kind of disinformation campaign, I'm coining a new term for it. I know that this has been used before, but no one has defined this like I am about to. I'm calling this info-terrorism. Because the worst thing you can do to a human being is deprive them of their life. The second worst thing you can do to a human being is deprive them of truth. Now let's see some facts. How serious is this? In 2023 alone, around 500,000 deepfakes were estimated in social media. Every third American has shared some false content in their lifetime. And lastly, during the pandemic, around 66% of disinformation campaigns were posted by bots. So not even humans are doing this. Imagine you create an AI bot which generates this as long as you have electricity in your house, or in your facility, or in some unknown facility in Russia. This probably was mentioned yesterday. I know that my colleague Kamer Vichy mentioned this, but the Global Risk Report of 2024 says that the worst, the most important risk in the next 2 years for our society is misinformation and disinformation. And again, the most important risk in the next 10 years is disinformation and misinformation only after environmental crisis. So, if global warming is not going to kill us, misinformation and disinformation might. Now this is the boring part of the presentation. How do we fight this? I see that this fight against disinformation can be done on 3 levels, but they all hinge on one single concept. Any disinformation campaign which is never shared never impacts anything. So the problem with disinformation campaigns is not that some foreign country is trying to sway our public opinion, is that we're actively sharing it. The first level of defense is the government. They can actually do something about this. Firstly, enforce strict regulations on AI and non-AI content. I applaud the consideration of the Supreme Court of the US to actually try and change the law of censorship during social media. I know this is a hot topic of discussion, censorship, but sometimes that might be a solution. Next up, fund R&D for news classification tech and news hubs. Imagine you see an interesting post about your own government elections, and you can just copy that link and paste it on a web page on a news classification hub, which will clearly define if it's true, if it's credible, if there is something to doubt about this post. Well, that's what we need. We need at least a shred of doubt about what we're reading so that we don't share it. Lastly, develop digital watermarking, open source intelligence tools, and content provenance tools. What this means is that we need to have a way to tell if an image is AI or not. We need to have a way to tell if an image has been tampered with, edited or not. This is actually being done in the University of Michigan right now, where they've developed a tool to do exactly this. It's called Glaze. The second level is the community level. We all know the stories where we read an interesting story which drives the human curiosity. And then we share it with our friends, our family, our community, or our coworkers. So on the community level, we need to focus on enhancing media literacy. The first thing that we can do is don't share something that you're not sure about, even if it's CNN or BBC, let alone Fox News. Encourage responsible information sharing. That's the most important one. And then foster a culture of critical thinking. Don't just go through life on autopilot. Actually think about what you're sharing, what you're reading, and be a little skeptical about it. And on the individual level, I would only emphasize that we should rely on trusted sources. There are fact-checking sites, Snopes, factcheck.org, even GPTs do a good job. Tomorrow I'll be hosting a training for the civil society and journalism, and I'm going to showcase how GPTs can actually detect bias. You take one news from Klan Kosovo and one from Telegraph, and you can see who is biased about what. And bias is natural. Everyone has bias. Robert A. Heinlein once said that you can sway 1,000 men by only their prejudices, but you can't convince one man by logic. Are our prejudices being used and our misconceptions and our biases against us in day-to-day? Whether it's Russia, China, or our own governments lying to us, that's for you to decide. This is the ultimate price of freedom which we have to pay and fight for rightfully every day. Thank you.